Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John. This is episode 284, and that's a lot of episodes. Listen, each and every week I sit down here and I answer your questions. If you have a question, please send your questions to podcast@DanJohnUniversity.com. I do my best to answer every question. I have noticed something in the last few weeks. I'm getting more and more medical questions, more and more medical intervention questions. Folks, I'm not qualified to answer these questions, nor would I want to, because there might be something more important than what you're asking. So, folks, make sure if you have an injury, you have an illness, consult a medical professional first, foremost, and again. And then I'm more than happy to step in and be part of your support team for your ongoing care and improvement. So there you go. Listen, our first question is from Cole. Cole says this: I'll be turning 33 in a month, and that's one of my favorite birthdays when I was a teacher. When my colleagues would turn 33, I used to always say, Alexander the Great conquered the world at 33. What have you done? And of course, then I make a little question about, a joke about some other people at 33. So Cole, you're 33. How are you doing? But he's going to try a one-man experiment. He says this: I know from previous podcasts you mentioned that the people who would benefit most from a minimalist program are those who have had a big background in strength and conditioning, and I thought I would fit the bill perfectly. My 33rd birthday will be my 20th anniversary with the weights. So he's been lifting weights since 13, Cole. That by itself is good. Just to emphasize what Cole is asking here, I think minimalist programs work well if you have a massive base of training underneath you. Sometimes if you decide, you've been training for 15 years and then somebody says, hey, why don't you just do 2 or 3 exercises? Very often that cut back on the number of things you do actually seems to kind of regenerate everything. For me, when I went to minimalist programs, the number one thing I noticed was it was up here. It was mental. It was like, oh, that's all I got to do. And because you make that sentence, you open up some new pathways and you improve. So good for you. I would like to focus on just 2 lifts 2 times a week and turn my brain off until next year and see how strong I can get. My home gym consists of a 32 kettlebell bell, a 32 kilogram bell, sorry about that, some glute loops, and a suspension trainer. What 2 movements would you recommend, and how should I go about progressing on a year-long program? Well, since you have a 32 kettlebell bell, I still, I remember Dr. Mark Chang saying one time, we still haven't, unpacked the original 2.0 program minimum. And that would be 2 days a week you do swings and Turkish get-ups. I also like the original program minimum that you don't really hear much about, but Pavel wrote about it in his first book, Russian Kettlebell Challenge, with the kettlebell snatch and the bent press. Now, I don't necessarily like either of these options, and I have an option I'm going to give you in just a moment. With this, now, because you mentioned the 32 kilo bell, I think the glute loops and the suspension trainer are marvelous. I would use those in your warm-up and your cool down. With the glute loops, we have that one little thing we do at the gym where I'll give you one example. We have several, but you do 15. So you have the band on your knees. You do 15 hip thrusts. You're on your back. You do 15 hip thrusts. You do 15 clamshells, 14 hip thrusts, 14 clamshells, 13, 13, 12, 12, 11. Yeah, all the way down to 1, 1. It's funny because when I say that, it sounds pretty easy. 15, 15, 14, 14. But I got to tell you, man, if you haven't been doing your glute work, your eyes will open. And on suspension trainer, I'm a big fan with suspension trainers with the single arm row, the T family, the Y family. And honestly, I think those are the 3 best things you can do with suspension trainers. So I would make sure you toss those in your training. My thought for you is to do a variation of the rite of passage. In fact, like I'm going to tell you to do the rite of passage, but I'm going to get there with the variation. It's now already we're cheating, but I think the kettlebell clean and press, and if you do the 32 and you do the rite of passage, if you do the kettlebell clean and press, single side, so on the left side, you can do 1 clean and press. On the right side, 1 clean and press, 2 clean and press left, 2 clean and press right, 3 left, 3 right. Now with the 32, that might be the first, or doing 3 reps with the 32 is a good number. So you go 1, 2, 3, and then you come back. So single, single, double, double, triple, triple, and then come back and do another round of it. Same workout, single, double, triple. And then maybe even get a third round of it, single, double, triple. And there, right there, that's 18 reps of clean and press. That's a good start. Over time, you want to add 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over time you want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the rungs and the ladders. And if you ever build up with a 32 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you do it for 5 total rounds, that's 75. And I got to tell you, that's a good workout. The other thing is the other exercise. With the rite of passage, one of the things that was recommended was the swing. And as much as I like the swing, for you, I was thinking of doing the snatch. Now, this is an idea that we've kicked around for a while, of doing the snatch as the complement to the rite of passage. It's a lot. It kind of sounds to me of 16 tons. A lot of men tried. Okay, it's a tough workout to do those snatches 3 days a week. What I'd recommend for you is it'd be still use the roll of dice idea. In the original rite of passage, it was 2 swing days a week and 1 snatch day. One of the things that some of us had a conversation was years ago was make all 3 days snatch days. But the snatch days, if you do the roll of dice idea and you have 2, a pair of dice and you roll, that means you could get 10, 11, and 12 minutes of snatching. And a lot of us felt that was too much. So I had this idea, and I'd like you to try it, Cole, is you only use 1 die and you roll it, and that's the minutes of snatches you do. So you do the rite of passage, and your goal is to get up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for 5 rounds with clean and press. And then the other exercise is the snatch, but you only use 1 die. So you roll it, with the 32, the 6-minute day would be tough, but the 1, 2, 3, those are all pretty reasonable. With the 4 being, a little bit of a step up, and the 5 and the 6 will be harder. How you get those 6 minutes of snatches, and I hope you don't roll 6s, 3 days in 1 week, but it could happen. And you know what happens? That's a hard week. Okay. I would like you to always do the glute loops and the T, Y, and single arm going into every workout as your warm up. I think it's a good program. And how are you going to go progressing on it? Well, you're going to go 1 clean and press, both sides, 2, 3, and then over time, you're going to nudge up those numbers. 2 days a week on this program. I can see you going really hard 1 day a week on the clean and press side. In the rite of passage, traditionally, we have a medium and a light day. Of course, you might want to look up some of this and figure out how to do that. For me, it was pretty natural. I would find that I tried to go Monday, Wednesday, Saturdays on it when I first did the program. And I always made Saturday my hard day because that was the most time I had in the week. My daughters would sleep in on Saturday mornings, and that gave me a lot of time to get workouts in. And, the rite of passage, loaded carries, my Highland Game training, my Weight Pentathlon training. I could get so much work in on that one day, Saturday morning. Mondays was always the hardest day of the week for me because it's Mondays. And, there's a lot of songs about, how tough Mondays are. And I think it's still true. So on Mondays, I always made my light day. So if I did 5 rounds of 1, 2, 3 on Saturday, I would do 3 rounds of 1, 2, 3 on Monday. The other day, the Wednesday in this case, the medium day, you would go, if I did 5 on the hard day, 3 on the easy day, I think we're all knowing that we're going to do 4 on the medium day. After a while, I realized I don't like singles and 4s. I especially don't like 4s. So I slid over 2, 3, 5 as my numbers. And for me, 2, 3, 5 was better. So you can do it the whole workout this way. You can go with your reps being 2, 2, 3, 3, 5, 5. And then you can also go 2, 2 for 2 rounds. Pretty easy day. Of course, with the 32, it won't be. And you can also play around with the rungs going. You're going to do the easy day being 2, the medium day being 3, and the hard day being 5. I found that really natural for me. As I got closer, this would be when I was getting ready for the RKC, as I got closer and closer to the RKC, we were also moving into track and field. So as the head coach, I was extremely busy doing this program. And so I moved to the 2, 3, 5 to accommodate how, this very busy full-time schedule. I hope that helps. I like your idea. I don't know in the kettlebell world if you're going to find, let me just drop one more thing. Little Danny John at age 14 said that 50 years from now, when I was 64, if all I did was barbell clean and press and the Olympic snatch, the squat snatch, I would cover all movements. And it's funny because here I am, older than 64. I'm 68 now, and, little Danny John's advice back in 1971 still holds true for me anyway. When I focus on the clean and press and the snatch, good things happen. In the kettlebell world, I like to focus on the clean and press. The armor building formula is loaded with it, and the kettlebell snatch. And it's just funny for me to think of this, Cole, top of my head, just how long I've been doing this and how much I still think there's value to it. Well, thank you for your question, and I enjoyed answering it. This is an interesting one from Brian. I'm planning on volunteering to coach throwers at a local junior high school this upcoming spring. Brian, when you die, when you tell St. Peter at the pearly gates that you volunteer coach to the school as a throwing coach, the doors open, right open, you walk right in, okay? When I threw the discus in high school and for a while at a small Division III college in the late 1970s, I never had a throwing coach. In recent years, I've learned a lot from videos and really appreciate I have a book called A Contrarian Approach to the Discus Throw. It's free over there at Dan John University if you want to know what he's talking about, everybody. I participate in an Olympic weightlifting program, have lifted in 2 regional meets, good, and I've read most of your books. I like you. I'm also catching up on old Dan John University podcasts. Here's my question. The great Czech discus thrower Ludwig Danek won the gold medal at the 1972 Olympics. John Powell, my friend, took 4th with a throw of 64.40 meters. It may be oversimplistic, but it seems that Danek's technique of sprinting to the front of the circle would be easier to teach new throwers than the wide leg sweep popular today. What do you think? Well, it's just funny you say that because John Powell, I coached at his camp for 25 years. John Powell, who took 4th in this meet and then got the bronze in 76 and 84. John believed in sprinting to the front. It's interesting because, okay, so just so you know who you're talking to. So I went to the Utah State University, the school that invented this wide leg sweep. LJ Sylvester famously came to coach on a Monday and said, I've added 20 feet to my throw. And Coach Mon, being a very good coach, said, what are you doing? And of course you got LJ Sylvester, Glenn Passy, myself, James Parker, the Carter brothers, and our Canadian throwers. Utah State, Ayn Roost, very famously, at the Pan Am Games. The Utah State throwing technique, was kind of adopted by the East Germans, and they adopted that a great technique, that the style you see with all their great throwers. Wolfgang Schmidt has a very Utah State style, though some of the others, the world record holder and all those world champions, and they had more of a fixed front. But so the Utah State technique, and then I coach at the John Powell camps all those years. And don't forget, it was John who gave me my first. He gave me my real first coaching when he had just gotten back from the '72 Olympics, and he was with Tim Vollmer, and Tim was more of the Utah State style, and of course John. We all sprint across the ring, and the thing about the Czechoslovakian style, you'll see that with Danek and you'll see that with Bugar, is that they do a couple of things across the ring that are still really worth looking at. As you'll notice, as both Danek and Bugar go across the ring, there's that high knee lift, which for a lot of people, the Cuban throwers, the least, did something like that too. So I know I'm going into the weeds for those of you who aren't interested in the discus throw, but I want everyone to hear, as I explain this to Brian, that sometimes in high-level sports, what looks like are different are all just the same. We're all trying to get to the same destination. How far can we throw that implement? If I'm watching in American football, watching a team run the veer or the spread or the system or the run and shoot, which I've coached all of them. When you look at those, you always say, well, these are radically different. But then you'll talk to the coaches, and one of the things that comes up is that phrase we use in baseball all the time. You want to hit the ball where they ain't. In American football, you want your ball carriers and your receivers to go where they ain't, or where the other team is not. So they look radically different while you're watching the game, but the principles underneath are the exact same. And I'm a principles-driven coach. So the thing I would like to tell you, Brian, is that when you're reading a contrarian approach to the discus throw, you are reading a linear. One last story. John was at the San Jose State Library, and he found a picture from Czechoslovakia. They used to have these magazines that would come out from Czechoslovakia and the Soviet Union. I mean, I remember reading Soviet Life because you're trying to look for pictures for what the athletes are doing. And then I later found out they were all bogus, but it's okay. But Danek is coming out of the back, and he's in that position that you're talking about. And John said, well, I need to do that. I need to make, and he noticed that Danek had it real tight to his butt. We call that the spanky position in the book. So John was influenced by Danek. And then, of course, John influenced the whole style. But when you break all the styles down, essentially, we all do basically the same thing, in the same way that there might be different styles of coaching different sports, but they're all basically the same principles and goals. I hope that helped, but the answer is going to be yes. The nice thing is, if you use that book I have and coach the way I tell you to coach in that book, you're going to be a very happy and successful throws coach. Okay? Hope that helped. And that was fun for me, and I probably lost half my audience. So thanks so much. Got a question from Nick, and Nick is probably from the Commonwealth nations because of the spelling. Nick says, I've had great success with the dual kettlebell armor building formula with 24 kilograms, followed by the swing, loaded carry, and ab roller portions of easy strength. And I recommend that in the book, and I'm glad you're doing that. Thanks for that. I've been wanting to increase my working weights to a 32 kilogram bell, but just can't clean and press double 32s. That's not unusual. I've been thinking that doing the one arm armor building formula with a push press instead of a strict press with a 32 to failure, then reverting back to the 24 to finish the reps. Would you advise sticking to single bells or moving to double 24s for the second portion of the ABC? Well, I'm going to just tell you this from the heart. I really like this idea. So he wants to jump to the 32, and it's too heavy for him to press. Okay, no problem. But he can clean and push press the 30. Well, yeah, do the single arm, boom, do your squats, boom, clean and press. Sorry, I get kind of fired up. Clean and push press, get your squats in. Clean and push press, get your squats in. Put the bell down. I would just stick to that by itself. I don't know. Let's say you want to do 20 rounds today. Well, if you can handle today, let's say you're going to do 20 rounds of the workout, okay? If you do 5 rounds the first day on the single side with the 32 and 15 with the double 24s, there's your standard. Now, as you slide that up to 6, 7, 8 with the 32s, and you can just stay with that standard of the 24, of the 20 with the 24s. I love it. And slowly inch your way up, not even slowly, you'd probably make some real good progress quickly, but slowly inch your progress up, with that 32. I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, as you get, maybe a couple of weeks under your belt, that one day you clean it and just decide, and you lock it out and you press it. I like this idea, and I got to tell you, if I do write an additional supplement to the book, I might even steal this idea, because doing the single side followed by the standard ABC, there's some wisdom in this. So as you inch up, and it's almost in an easy strength fashion, isn't it? As you inch up that 32 singles, you are getting stronger. This is the definition of progressive resistance exercise. So I'm a big fan of it. I think it's a good idea. So I don't know if I'm answering your question the way you said it, because I just love this idea. So you have 20 rounds of the ABC. You're going to do 3, 4, 5 single ABCs with the 32 and the push. And then you're going to fill in to get to the 20 with the doubles with the 24s. And then over time, I want you to nudge those 32 numbers up. If you ever get to, 20 rounds, even with the push press, with the 32, that extra load of those single kettlebell front squats with the 32, I just can't imagine it's not going to do something marvelous to you. Okay? Hey, great question. Easy, fun, and I thank you. Okay? Mike has a question. From time to time, you mention exercises that transfer to other sports can give you a bit more. From time to time, you mention exercises that transfer to other sports can give a bit more exercises or insight on that matter. Okay. I am primarily a martial artist. We are always doing push-ups, bench press, jumping squats, etc. But I never feel I got stronger in my punching or kicking until I quit those horizontal pushing muscles. Good. I started doing the overhead presses, for instance. Like you suggested, I immediately noticed that I got stronger in pushing like never before. What are the best exercises that transfer to other sports or for my martial arts practice? Well, the other sports and martial arts practice, those are two completely different questions. But like a lot of people, you've discovered, Mike, that, push-ups are great, bench press are great, doing jumping squats are great and good, but sometimes you gotta take care of business. When I was little, the first strength and health magazine I ever bought, it's up there in my shelves. There's an article about weightlifting for wrestlers, and there's a line in that article I will never forget. And basically, he said, if you do the Olympic lifts and you snatch 165 pounds and you're in the 165 pound weight class, it means that you know that you're strong enough to pick up your opponent and in one motion, whip them overhead. Now, whether that's true or not, is, there's more to it. But being able to bench press 165, in my view, isn't nearly as impressive as to be able to clean and jerk it, snatch it, or clean and press it. So for me, I always think that the Olympic lifts are the best things fighters can do. Now, having said that, there's not a fighter I know who won't instantly push back and say, I can't bend my wrists more than this. I got a bad elbow, I got a bad shoulder, I got a bad knee. And of course, my thought is always, and you want to do more? Okay, how many injuries does it take before you start going, yeah, that's enough? So I like the fact, I'm going to give you 3 ideas that I think are very good in, well, practically everybody. I'm going to take you back to 2002. I had broken this wrist in 8 pieces, and I had to get 2 surgeries to repair it. I'm sure there's somebody online who's going to say that I was training stupid and I hurt it. No, I was lifting stupid and I hurt it. I was at an Olympic lifting meet, and I snatched the state record, and I was fighting, and the bar moved and I dumped it, but sadly my elbow hit the ground and the weight hit it right there and blew me apart. There's more to the story, but that's enough. So back then I started this newsletter online called Get Up, and I'm still very proud of it. I thought it was a marvelous little free newsletter. And after the first edition, Mike Rosenberg said to me, you got to put your mission statement in there. So we had a long conversation about what that is. And one of the things that I truly believe in, and here's my advice for you, is that I think that everybody listening should do 3 things. Put weights over their head, lift weights off the ground, and carry weights for time or distance. It's funny. In my career, I often think back on some of the things I say. Now, thank you to Mike Rosenberg on that. But I also have to thank Success Magazine, because in 1996, Success Magazine, I don't know if it exists anymore. It was this monthly little tiny newsletter. It was great. And it said the 3 secrets to success. And they were so simple. Number 1 was show up. Number 2 was don't quit. And number 3 was ask questions. That's the 3 secrets to success. And I adopted that in 1996. And obviously, you know things, but sometimes when you see it that simple, it just resonates in your head forever. Not long ago, somebody had claimed that I had stolen that from them. But my thought was, you got to go back to Success Magazine in 1996. Yeah, I stole it from Success Magazine, no question about that. But when I take you back to put weights overhead, lift weights off the ground and pick them up and carry them for time or distance, this summarizes things for me. I think you should still keep doing the overhead press, family, whatever you can do. You can snatch, you can clean and jerk, you can clean and press, whatever works for you. You can press off the racks, you can do whatever you got to do. I'd love to see you have a deadlift variation, which is interesting because you're doing jumping squats, but I'd love a deadlift variation or cleans or snatches, but pick things up off the floor. And there are so many deadlift variations. You can put your heels together, the sometimes called the duck deadlift. We called it the frog stance deadlift. Snatch grip deadlift. You can do Romanian deadlifts. You can do, really the hack squat is a deadlift variation somewhat. It's a great one. I'm sure we like rack deadlift, whatever it is, pick weights off the ground. And the third one is carry things for time or distance. As a fighter, I think you get more out of suitcase carries, but farmer walks are great. Bear hug carries with heavy weights are great. Dragging sleds, pushing prowlers, pushing cars. Get a really bad car, or have a good friend of yours get a bad car and you just push the car around town. Get it up to freeway speeds. So that's what I would tell you. Just put it overhead, and you're already starting to do that. Pick weights off the ground and then do loaded carries. Honestly, Mike, if I could just wave my hand and give one bit of advice to everyone listening, put weights over your head, pick them up off the ground and carry them. Pick 3 exercises. It's funny when I think about kettlebells, you can do, if I said overhead press, swing, suitcase carry, that's pretty good. If you have barbells, you can do clean and press. And there's 2 of the there's 2 of the 3 right there. And then I hate this exercise, but deadlift carries. I don't like it at all. It's where you deadlift a bar and walk with it. I don't like it, but it's a great one. Whatever piece of equipment you have, just say, okay, that's what we're going to do today. I hope it helped. And I got to be honest with you. At first, when I first read the question, I didn't know if I would like it or not, but making me go back mentally to 1996 and Success Magazine really actually helped me. And thank you to whoever wrote that in Success Magazine. And thank you to Mike Rosenberg for reminding me, helping me through what I thought were the core important things. And there is a minor lesson to all this, folks, is that very few of us invent things in life. I like to think I've invented a few things. Goblet, squat, suitcase carry. I was there with Greg with the slosh pipe, and boy, that was Greg Henger and Mike Rosenberg and Lonnie Wade. I mean, Bill Witt, those experiences I had at Discus camp that we just would spend a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks just talking about training all the time and how to win. That just really shaped my career. So I guess my final point on this is be sure you stay in community and you talk to people about improving, because when you have conversations with people who love what you love, who are trying to do what you're trying to do, you just get these ideas. And the important thing is to write them down and remember them. Thank you, Mike. Great question, and I thank you. Got a question from Richard. I got a brother named Richard. Do you have any experience with long periods at a fixed weight for easy strength protocols? For example, a month at a fixed weight, then an appropriate jump and load, stay there for another month, then another increase, etc. I'm doing easy strength for fat loss for the first time, and I feel like my chin-ups have made the most improvement, even though I haven't progressed them at all. So the late, great John McKeon, McKean, I've mentioned this in the podcast a few times. If you go to dragondoor.com and you Google his name, he's got a great article on fixed weights. And when I first read it, I thought, wow, but remember, anytime you read something that makes your head go around, it's helpful. It got me thinking. And then I was at a workshop, Pavel and I did that easy strength, and he talked about strongman training, but not strongman like our competitions on TV and stuff, but the old professional strongmen. The professional strongmen used to do like 2 or 3 shows a day, and you couldn't blow a gasket if you're doing 2 or 3. You can't get hurt. This is your living. So they lifted very heavy weights 2 or 3 times a day, but they were always safely within their range. Maybe they made it look like it was the hardest lift ever, but they were well within their groove, okay? So is there a value to this? Now, all I can tell you about, you asked me about experience. So Richard, I'm giving my experience. Back in 1991, the Upper Limit Gym here in Murray closed, and it really hurt me because that's where I did my Olympic lifting. And the day it closed, they had a fire sale on equipment, and I was poor as a church mouse in 91. We just had Kelly, and we're expecting Lindsay, and I wasn't getting paid well as a school teacher. Nothing ever changes. And Tiffany was between things, as I recall. So we were hurt, and so I couldn't. And so I got not a great barbell, and then I got 2 35-pound plates and 2 25-pound plates, okay? And that was my gym. Now, if you come to my gym today, you will still see those 25s and 35s. The 35s are just rusted hunks of metal, but I use them on the deficit deadlift, so it works out just great. They just sit on that T-bar thing. That's all I had. So the heaviest I could go was 165 pounds. Now, not 165 kilos, 165 pounds. So with those, so I could do the bar, I could do 95, I could do 115, and I could do 165. Because of that's all I had, I came up with a program called the Transformation Program, which about 4 or 5 years later became one of the most important programs I used for my throwers and American football players, because it was necessity. So that's my experience. Now, in the middle of this, I'm getting ready for an Olympic lifting meet. So 2 weeks before, I asked my friend to open up his high school gym. So I get going. They had bumper plates. They didn't have a very good Olympic lifting bar, but they had bumper plates. And I went up to what I thought would be my openers at an Olympic lifting meet. Now, this is one of those funny stories, and you've heard me say this if you've heard my work. This program worked so well, I stopped doing it. I hadn't lifted heavy in months, literally. All I had was 165, but because I was doing sets of 8 with just a minute rest, I was in good shape. I mean, I whipped over my approximate opener, and when I went to the meet, I went 6 for 6. I broke the state records in the snatch, the clean and jerk, and the total in my weight class, in the open class, with training on weights that were literally half of what I was going to take in my attempts on the bar, on the platform. So it can work. The only thing you might have to do with the fixed weights, Richard, is you may have to go up on the reps. And this is where easy strength starts to slide into this thing I call easy hypertrophy. So let's just say you're using, I'm going to say 100 kilos, pounds, doesn't matter, 100. And the first week of the month, you're doing 2 sets of 5, and it's really, and by the time Friday comes around, the 5th day, they're popping off you. Next week, you might have to play around with an idea of going to, now it's against easy strength, basic ideas, but you may have to nudge the reps up. And for me, I just went from 5 to 8 because, well, 6 and 7 aren't Fibonacci numbers, and my mind couldn't handle it. But if you slide up to 2 sets of 8, and then after week 3, maybe you go up to 3 sets of 8. Now you're right in the middle of Tom DeLorme's classic progressive resistance protocol. There's nothing new under the sun. And on the 4th week, you go to 3 sets of 10 before you increase your weights. I think this is a great idea. I have no issues with this. And your point about chin-ups is, as always, important. In my book, Armor Building Formula, I just throw up my hands about pull-ups and chin-ups. I can no longer answer questions or put pull-ups and chin-ups in programs because no matter what I do, 1,000 questions come. If I put 3 sets of 8 in a workout, the first response is, I can't do 1. What am I supposed to do? So then I give all these regressions and progressions and ideas, and I spend way too much of my time answering pull-up and chin-up questions when, 12 feet away is the lat pull-down machine, and I don't know. I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just, easier on my brain pan. I think it's very doable, Richard. I think it's a good idea. The devil's going to be in the details on this, and you're going to have to think about how you're going to approach as the weights get way too light. But we know one answer: more repetitions. Okay? Thanks so much. I've got a question from Peter, and Peter's question is common. I'm a 35-year-old man, former collegiate football player whose career was cut short from injuries. An American football player whose career was cut short by injuries. Wow, never heard that one before. After my career in organized sports was over, I continued to train hard and use my body as much as possible. Good. And in total, as I have more injuries than someone should have in a lifetime. Let's go through the list. Torn MCL, torn meniscus, torn bicep, jersey finger, broken rib, torn hip labrum, broken foot, inguinal hernia, I know I said it wrong, severe ankle sprain, slip disc, etc. Not bad for 35. I know I've put some serious miles on my body, and following the birth of my son this year, I don't want to be the dad who's too broken to have a catch or shoot some hoops. As a longtime follower of your work, I know it's time for me to slide into hypertrophy, yes, and mobility work. What type of exercises are best for people with bodies that have been through a lot and want to maintain their muscle mass without aggravating any old injuries? Well, you know what? Hi, I'm Dan John, and I'm here for you, Peter, because I'm with you. A lot of people disagree with me about the following, but I'm right. Okay. When you're broken, I have a very simple theory. For upper body work, it's single side work. So that is your your overhead press if you can, a single side overhead press, your one arm bench press, your one arm row, your shoulders have independent suspension. Okay, I say that a lot in this podcast. So doing upper body single side stuff, but for lower body it should be all two-legged stuff. I feel very strongly about this, and because as you know, I mean, if you do a single leg exercise and you get any wiggle with a torn meniscus, you know that thing might pop again if it's been surgically healed. But if you're doing two-legged stuff, I think it's a lot safer. So the hip thrust, the goblet squat, as you can. But the hip thrust is money, and I think that'd be a really good exercise. But the hip thrust, the goblet squat, I have that hinge variation called the Bulgarian goat bag swing, where you put the load and you push the load into your belly, and then you do hinges. It would be a tackling in American football. So upper body, one arm bench, one arm overhead press, single arm row. Lower body, hip thrust, goblet squat. If you can put a stick over your head and do the overhead stick squat. Bulgarian goat bag swing, suitcase carries, okay? Because it's upper body, single side. I have a program. You can look at it here. It's called the Perfect Program, and it consists of a few exercises. But I love, for injured athletes, broken athletes, the exercise called the half kneeling press. In one of my podcasts, the caption says 500,000 press. And of course, everybody had to comment on it, but the half kneeling press, generally, if my left knee is on the ground, I tend to press with the left hand. So the knee that's down is the hand I press with. You'll do sets of 8 with the half kneeling press, then switch sides, sets of 8 with the other side. And then if you can, I'd love it if you could hang from a bar for 30 seconds. In the Perfect workout, we do that for 3 rounds. And then from there, there's a number of ways you can go. I'd love to see you do the hip thrust right after that. By the way, if you have the equipment, the hyperextension might be a real good exercise for you too. But let's stick with the hip thrust. Depending on how you do it, you can do it sets. You can do one hard burnout set, which I like a lot. From there, you could slide over to the goblet squat if your wheels can handle it. In the Perfect workout, we do the goblet squat overhead stick exercise. It's in the thing. The Bulgarian goat bag swing, and then the suitcase carry. I think if you were to spend some honest time on that. Now, why do I recommend those exercises? Because in that family of exercises, Peter, every one of those exercises is a twofer. You're getting mobility work. So in the half kneeling press, you're stretching out that hip flexor, and you're really causing this to get a lot of work in. On the hang, when you just hang from a bar, I call it the poor man's chiropractor, because I always get that little pop in my head, that neck pop, and it makes me feel good. With the goblet squat, it's a mobility exercise, it's a strength exercise. The overhead squat is a mobility exercise, but it's a strength exercise. And then when you do the Bulgarian goat bag swing, you're going to stretch those hammies out. And of course, when the suitcase carry is just, total body tension, but it's also walking. Do that workout, take a walk, do your best to, I'm going to tell you that at 35, you do your best not to get fat. Make sure you get your protein in, get your fruits in, get your vegetables in, drink your water, drink your delicious coffee. It's mountain grown. It's the richest kind. And I want you to follow up for me and let me know how things are going when you try this. Now, you might find the Perfect workout to be boring, but one thing you can do very simply is on day 1, you do the half kneeling press, hangs first. Day 2, you could do the hip thrust first and the presses last. Day 3, you could do the goblet squat first, and then, just keep changing the order around a little bit. That'll get you 2 or 3 weeks of variation. And then, of course, the other thing you can always do is add more load. And then when you do that, you're going to reach out to me and we'll talk about what we do next, okay? Good luck, and let's hope you overcome some of this, okay? Thank you. It is interesting because, at 35, you're my daughter's age, and it concerns me that you're dealing with some of these injuries. Thank you. Real simple question from Sean. What are your thoughts on the belt squat and the banded hip thrust for lower body hypertrophy work? As someone with lower back issues, I'm always looking for ways to pack muscle on my legs without days of sciatica afterwards. Dude, I love the belt squat. The first time I saw it was in an Iron Man magazine. Oh man, this is back in the 74, 73, and I remember thinking, yeah, that'd be great if I could figure out how to do it. Then I went home and I realized that, I didn't have a belt and I didn't have enough weight to make it work, but I've always been a fan of it. Sadly, I've only done it a few times in my life because it is an equipment thing, but I am going to be trying out a new belt squat device in a few weeks, and I'll even do a little review of it. But the upside for those who've never done a belt squat, the nice thing is that the load, is around, that, what is that? So it sits up here. So the belt sits up here in your waist, and the belt and your anatomy basically hold weight, and your upper body is free. Now, why I think that's a good idea is if you do high rep squats, you can put your hands on your knees if you decide to force yourself to some forced reps. Also, if something bad happens, you squat back down and the load is off of you. So, I've never really hurt myself in a home gym squatting because I never push the load. I always make the reps when I train by myself. But the nice thing about the belt squat, if you're a home trainer, is you can chase fatigue a little bit safer. And then, of course, the hip thrust. If you don't know, I love the banded hip thrust. I have a bunch of videos on here on my YouTube channel about it. I love it. In fact, I think when I get this new belt squat, I will be doing some. So I had this idea of doing this belt squat. Check that. Here, let me get it. So hip thrust, banded hip thrust to failure, belt thrust, banded hip thrust to failure, belt squats to failure, deficit deadlift to a safe finish, hanging bent knee leg raises to relax everything. I obviously with your sciatica, the deficit deadlift might not be an idea, but you do those two exercises that you have back to back, followed by hanging bent knee leg raises. It'd be really interesting to see how that lower back feels. Get back to me if it works, okay? And if it doesn't, don't know. Just let me know how it goes. Thanks so much. Yeah, this final question today, and boy, things went fast, it seems, is mostly because I want to talk about something. So it's Tom, and Tom asks, I decided to get serious about losing weight and fat and purchased your book at 73 years old. So Tom, you inspire me. You're 5 years older than me, and you're finally getting serious. So that's good to hear that. It was about time to do something. I'm a former collegiate athlete, and I've used kettlebells for a number of years. I've just gotten started with the program when my back cramped up. Not the first time it happened. I know you are a big fan of hanging from a pull-up bar. While on a walk, I passed a playground with monkey bars. I proceeded to hang when my shoulder told me to stop. Long story short, MRI revealed a couple minor tears, but no immediate surgery. My question is, how can I substitute for the presses while I continue this program? I do have an assortment of wristbands. Well, so Tom is giving you some good advice. He's 73 and he's still going for it. So first off, you're a good role model for all of us, Tom, and I appreciate it. Second, he's got injuries. And, the MRI says you got some issues, and how are we going to let it fix? We're going to cross our arms and just wait, okay? that's actually very often the best idea. I like Stu McGill's idea. He calls it the virtual surgery, where you just, you pretend you had a serious surgery and then you deal with it. So, Tom, virtual surgery. What would you do on the Monday after your surgery on Friday if you had a shoulder problem? Would you do the heaviest snatch of your life? Would you clean and jerk 500 pounds? Or would you take it easy? So what I always recommend, and Tom, this is for you, but this is all of our listeners. If you have an injury that the surgeon, the doctor, the physical trainer, the physio tells you we need to wait on it, I agree. You got to wait on it. But that doesn't mean you can't work everything else in your body while ignoring that. Now, I mean, there's a picture of me in my apartment in Burlingame after my first total hip replacement, where I'm sitting in a chair doing clean and presses, because I'm literally sitting in a chair doing clean and presses, because that's what I decided to do. Immediately after a total hip replacement, when I got home, I started doing clean and presses, and all I had was a 28 kilo bell. So, I pulled it up to here, and which leg was it? Oh, it must have been my left one. And I did clean and presses. And I clean and pressed, and I did banded rows on my porch. I did all kinds of exercises. I worked so hard on everything except the leg that was hurt. And then a couple days a week, I go to my PT, my physical therapist, and we would do all these different exercises to build up the hip area so that the surgery was more successful. On my second total hip replacement, famously, they woke me up in the morning, and I got good advice from my doctor. They say, if they wake you up, so I said, I need to get up and walk. And I walked and I walked and I walked. And the person said they've never seen somebody walk so much after a total hip replacement. Let me tell you why I'm doing this. And then when I got back, they said, can we get you anything? And I wanted a diet Sprite, and I wanted a butterscotch pudding, and I wanted a chocolate pudding. And when they came back, do you want anything else? And I said, yeah, I'd like a vanilla pudding and another diet Sprite. Why? My doctor gave me good advice. They said, the more things you ask for when they wake you up at 2 a.m, they won't wake you up anymore. So, and he was right. I was able to sleep in that was the only time, maybe one other time, that I was done for the night. And the rest of the time I was just on the machines that went bing. A little Monty Python reference if you don't know. So I walked instantly. The moment I got a chance, I started doing leg extensions. The moment I got a chance, I did standing leg curls with the good leg. Upper body work as much as I could. Machine bench press, machine curl, machine triceps, machine this, machine that. Do whatever you can do as much as you can do it that doesn't irritate the injured part. Now, does that mean you have to think? Absolutely. But we know this, is that the body is one piece. So as I'm working this left bicep, I got a bad right shoulder, we'll say. I'm doing one arm curls with my left hand. All the magic supplements and chemicals and hormones and all that stuff, it's all chemicals, but they don't just go into my left bicep. They swim all the way around everything else. Swimming chemicals in your bloodstream. Hi, I'm Dan John, and I missed that day in physiology when we used the right words. But that's the idea. That's the way I think of it. If I have a bad shoulder and I'm pumping out my leg extensions and I'm getting all that lactic acid in there and I feel the burn and all that, as I'm recovering, it's not just going into my quads, it's hitting every spot. We do know now, there was a study that we do know that, if you fast, you lift hard, they did that study where, and I got this from Brad Pilon. I'm giving you credit, Brad. Thank you so much, because it's brilliant. We do know with this targeted carbon stuff that they put in the protein drink, that protein actually does go to where, so when you do presses and you eat a lot of protein, we now know that the body does target protein into rebuilding. So that's my advice for you. It's not great advice, but it's reasonable, it's doable. And for all of you who have injuries, please, I beg of you, see qualified medical people. Get the best rehab and prehab and surgery you can get done. But for every other aspect, part of your body, train it as best you can, as long as you can. Fun questions today. Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Well, listen, I'm Dan John. Each and every week I sit down here and answer your questions. If you have questions, please send them to the podcast at this address, podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. I'm more than happy to answer them. And until next week, let's all keep on lifting and learning. Thank you.